Attention, your attention. It's Benny and I'd like to mention I'm on the microphone this morning. Honk your horn if you're on it. What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we have another episode of Crowdfunding Countdown, where we take a look at every board game campaign imaginable whose funding is finishing up within the next week. The reason being that there's always a lot of attention paid to board games at the start of their life cycle on these crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and GameFound, but not as much when they're ending it. So I like to take a look at games that have unlocked a ton of stretch goals, and also games that maybe aren't funding or have just funded, because sometimes you can find a few diamonds in the rough. I read through the rulebooks so you don't have to, and I'll give you a breakdown of interesting game mechanics, how it might feel, and if it's worth your time even bothering to check out. So let's get right to it. First off, we have Rat Queens to the Slaughter, which is based off a comic series that I've never heard of because I never learned how to read. Rat Queens is a cooperative game where you'll take on the role of 4 Rat Queens, or 5 if you have the expansion, and try to defend your homeland against a big bad monster that's determined halfway through the game. The combat system is very much like an RPG in the sense that you'll have an attack value, you'll fight against someone's defense value, rolling dice, using cards in your hand, and upgrading those cards later. It's got a lot of neat things going for it. The characters are all different and specialize in different things. One might be better at healing, one might be better at being sneaky. There are also 4 sections of homeland that you have to continually defend against the onslaught of monsters, meaning you're going to be jumping all over the board trying to manage that. And anything that gives me even a hint of Attack on Titan, the deck building game, which uses a semi-similar premise, is a great thing. I also love that it uses the power of friendship as a resource, which I find incredibly charming. So the game looks fun, but there's one huge negative that I can't get behind, and it makes me completely not interested in this campaign, and that's the fact that they're keeping the stretch goals away from those who make only a base pledge, contrary to the marketing on their very same page. Now you're just lying. This makes me not want to support your game. This makes me pretty pissed off, to be honest. Why should I help you out now, paying the extra cost of shipping instead of a game store, giving you a larger percent of the profits, when you're not willing to give your base backers, which is $62 Canadian, before shipping, literally anything in return? They don't even add the 4-card Allies mini expansion. Is it that hard to organize? Is it that hard to give your backers literally anything? I understand the difference between additional minis and standees, for example. A lot of campaigns do this. Sure, you make 2 different pledges, one for the deluxe and you unlock some specific stretch goals for that deluxe version, and then one for the base. But in order to get the stretch goals, which are supposedly backer funded, and the reason, according to them, to pledge, you're making me pay an additional $40. It feels really shitty that you're not even trying to give your backers the appearance of value. And the stretch goals aren't big. They've only unlocked 24 cards. How much does it take to print 24 cards, Rat Queens? Because in this extra pledge level, you also have to buy the 5th character expansion and some other like mini expansions. And there's no way of bundling these out. And this is a really big letdown because it looks cool. When I looked at the campaign page and I saw the art, I thought, okay, yeah, this is an exciting way to start this video. But I just can't get over it. You've set us off on the wrong foot, Rat Queens. Shame on you. I thought you were all about friendship. This isn't friendship. This is antagonistic to me because I am friggin' fired up now. For the rest of this video, I'll be grumpy. Anyway, the deadline for that is Wednesday at 10 a.m. If you're interested, I'm just so sour about it that I think it's time to move on. Now next up we have 1947, which is both the most memorable year of the 40s and an 18XX game about building trains and rails across India from 1836 to 1947, hence the title. Now you've heard of 4X games, but have you heard of 18XX games? They gotta be better, right? Well, they've got nothing in common. And actually, if you've heard of 18XX games, you know that my description of them was pretty redundant because they're all about building rails and trains across somewhere in the 19th century. And some of you just fell asleep. But if complicated stock markets and trains get your jollies going, Well, listen up. Not only does 1947, The Decline of an Empire, The Birth of a Nation, devote a full page of its 50-page rulebook to the history of the time period before the game and the world events that lead up to this game's climate. More on that in a second. It has another section right at the beginning of the rulebook highlighting where to look for a summary of the particular changes that this game is bringing to the 18xx style, because a lot of them have very similar mechanics and only some slight tweaks here and there. And it also has a time warning that experienced players will be able to finish this game in 6 to 7 hours, and inexperienced players could take 8 to 10. Are you scared yet? But all that aside, and maybe it's because I'm unfamiliar with the 18xx genre, this game looks really cool. Maybe that's just because it ends with India achieving its independence in 1947, and I think that's a really cool journey to go on. A nice twist to the typical style of, you're the British colonizing everything, and you win when you colonize it the best. Ooh. Maybe because there are 11 railroad stocks that you have to manage and keep track of during the game. Or maybe I'm just really interested in visualizing playing it, and there's no way in hell I'm going to regularly spend 10 hours playing this incredibly complicated stock market game, and there's no way in hell I could get anyone I know who would want to play it with me. Not to mention it would be around $185 after shipping to Canada, but somehow that doesn't bother me as much as it might in other cases, because I feel like if this is your thing, this is your thing, and you're going to want to play it all the time and nothing else ever. So this will be the only board game purchase you ever make, and therefore not a bad price if you think of hour per player. So check it out. Your deadline is Wednesday at 12:01 p.m. Next up, we have Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth card game. It describes itself as a cooperative dungeon crawler, but there's not much dungeon to crawl through. You'll use heroes from the original Perdition's Mouth to play a card-driven adventure, where you're going to be tackling scenarios to create some sort of campaign structure. Apparently each scenario has different requirements for you to be able to play it. So you're going to be keeping some items in your deck over time and improving over the course of the campaign, and then I assume you'll just be able to pick and choose whatever scenario you want to play once you're finished with it. But I do like that semi-linear progression structure, that you have these sort of two options that you could pick if you've completed their necessary requirements. I think that's kind of neat. The rulebook's very bare bones. They do have it up there, but it doesn't give you access to the scenario book. So all you really know are the basic mechanics and not necessarily how the scenarios are going to be set up. But it's not a bad price point. I didn't write this price point down, but I did write that it's not a bad price point. I think it's something like 35 bucks or whatever. Basically how it plays, you'll have a row with monsters that spawn, a row for the heroes, and then a place to put your hero themselves. So you'll have to manage what range you can attack the monsters and at what range they can attack you, whether it's 2 rows away or 1 row away. And the game's basically all about manipulating the monsters, moving them back and forth, extending your hero's range to make that happen. It'll be mostly playing cards and using them to kill monsters. I assume if you're a fan of Perdition's Mouth, you'll probably want to pick this one up because it gives you more time with those characters that you have presumably grown to love. Otherwise, it's just fine. Maybe the most hurtful word you can use to describe a game. Maybe not. I can think of a few more. Rat queens. There's just nothing here that particularly grabs me. Although it is worth noting that they highlight that a solo gamer can play with just one character instead of having to two-hand it. Nope. And deal with those multiple personalities. And being someone who has many characters inside of my own head, that's something I could appreciate. I do love unique player powers, so hopefully they feel differently, but the core will be that sort of range system. So if that interests you, the deadline to back is Wednesday the 4th at 4:21 p.m. Next up, we have Pulp Invasion, or more specifically, Pulp Invasion X2, which is the second expansion to Pulp Invasion. But you can also get the base game and the first expansion here if you're interested. And the best part about the Pulp Invasion campaign is that when you click the link to see the previous campaign, it takes you to the unrelated Pulp Detective game, which raised double than the first Pulp Invasion did and whose mechanics are significantly different. But the art is quite charming. The price seems incredibly reasonable. At 19 bucks US for the base game, it's a bag builder, plays 1 to 2, and I'm thinking to myself, why did I not pay attention to this when it first came out? I quite enjoy bag builders. Well, the reason being, although it's marketed as 1 to 2 players, that's only with the expansion X1. No, not that X1. That X1. The base game of Pulp Invasion is just a solo game, where you have to stop 3 alien intergalactic races from unleashing their 6 super weapons on various worlds. If you want to play this with 2 players, the first expansion adds the second player, but you don't get to play together. You play as a traitor who's working against the main hero, so to speak, and basically just impeding their progress. So I'm not sure how satisfying that trailer mechanic would be, since it seems like a lot more fun to be the one fighting the aliens than just being the person who says, no, no. But if you're interested in solo stuff, I'd probably just opt for the base game. The second expansion, which is the one that's up right now, just adds more of everything. More captains, more villains, more monsters, that sort of thing. This is definitely just a solo game, but if you like solo games, it's a pretty good price point for that base game, and you have another opportunity to get it. You have until Thursday at 12:06 a.m., aka Wednesday night, to decide if that's something for you. Up next, we have Barnacles of Dragonar, Chronicles of Drunagor. Shout out to Brews and Board Games for that joke. And I'm absolutely positive you've seen my video on the 5 reasons why you shouldn't back Chronicles of Drunagor, which goes into pretty good detail about the mechanics that I'm excited about and the potential hang-ups that someone might have. Because let's face it, only my truest friends tune into these crowdfunding countdowns, and I love you all.
Me too.
You too, Maggie. Oh, sweet Maggie. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about this one. If you're still on the fence, you have until Thursday the 5th at 7 p.m. to make your decision. It still looks pretty cool to me, and I'm still probably not going to end up getting it. The stretch goals they've unlocked look neat, but are not necessarily overwhelming. Just a bunch of extra monsters and a few adventures that'll probably end up in the experience anyway, but keep in mind these stretch goals are only specific to the Apocalypse expansion, so they have no impact on you really if you're just thinking about getting the base game. And it was interesting, when I was watching their epic video on GameFound, I thought to myself, oh man, I may really need to get this game, which then turned into, oh yeah, I don't really need to get this, which then turned into pure joy as the big old death dragon did its little fire dance at the end of the video. And I just pictured whoever was holding it in real life just moving it around, and that image just made me so happy. So check it out, that's Barbie Dolls of Dumbledore, Age of Charm Proper Lips. Oh, you hear that sound? Funny card game alert! Did you ever want Cards Against Humanity to be even more edgy? Why not make it about politics? Especially in a time where politics are pretty much the most polarizing thing ever, and usually just devolve into arguments about basic human rights issues. Then try the 52nd state. It does get a point for using Reagan on its thumbnail instead of Donald Drumsterfire, but it loses 1,000 points for creating an intro video where the creators themselves seem to hate the game that they're pitching. It hasn't funded yet. It's pretty close. Basically, you have 3 cards, and they all go together to make a sentence which will relate to a law that you will try to pass. And the funniest card combo wins. Let your political activism soar. Play this with Uncle Dale at Thanksgiving. Give him the immigration issue card and see just how much fun times will be had by all. Next we have... Oh, you hear that sound? It's another miniatures game alert! Okay, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that. But we do have another miniatures game, Aryaral. Probably that one. This one adding the Kadashi swarms who just want you to stay out of their forest. Leave my forest alone! And usually I don't highlight these because there's a lot and you need a lot of factions to be able to play, but I thought these minis were unique enough to show them off. And also wanted to emphasize the heavy focus on lore and backstories. So if that's your thing and you like miniatures games, you may want to check this out. Also, some of these models are metal, which we learned from Rallyman last week is a very desirable selling point. So be sure to check that out if that's your thing. Moving on, we have another non-board game but board game related product produced by Board Game Tables, and that's the Jasper Shelves. Do Calyxes just not do it for you? Do you want to spend $3,500 on a shelf instead? Then try Jasper Modular Shelves. I'm really into this whole infomercial thing, probably because of the letter drop review from last week. Now, honestly, these seem really cool. You can adjust your shelves here and there by buying a compartment at a time so that your shelving unit grows as your collection grows. There's also a way to play it smart and not have to buy an extra box for every compartment, but you can stack them and assemble them in a way that the negative space also become units to slide board games into, and you can create some unique shapes and spaces. And it's really cool. Is it $100 for a cube cool? I'm not so sure. But I will say, although I've never tried a table from Board Game Tables, you see I have an IKEA clicky one right here that suits my smaller space. I recently got a great game bag from them, from my parents for Christmas, and I love it. And it's awesome quality, and it was a great gift. But if it's the difference between paying $800 for a Kallax-sized shelf or $80 to $100, well, you know where my money's going. I'd much rather spend that extra $700 on board games and fill that shelf. But if you no longer have room for games, but you do have the money, Board Game Tables will trade you for as much wood as you'd like. You want doors? They got doors. You want drawers? They got drawers. The drawers! Shelves? You got it. Backing? We don't need no stinking backing. I'm sure these will be super luxury, and if you just inherited a bunch of money from a wealthy uncle or took part in a dangerous death game and now have a small fortune, well then, get yourself a little treat to calm those inner demons. That's August 5th at 11 p.m. Next up, we have a small little deck builder that's raised over $300,000, and that's Volfyirion Guilds. And I can't for the life of me figure out why this is doing so well. I mean, it's branching off from Volfyirion, which is branched off from Mysthia. So how is a spin-off of a spin-off doing so well? And then I saw this sexy little storage gif, and you all know how crazy I go over storage.
What?
I'm sorry, Maggie. I've moved on. Plus, they're offering the retail edition for $21 and the Kickstarter edition for $36. And I don't know why this doesn't offend me in the way that Rat Queens does. Maybe because it feels more transparent. Maybe because hardly anybody's opted for the retail box, and pretty much everyone's going for the Kickstarter. Or maybe because it's a difference of $15 versus $40. Or because they're not forcing you to buy every single expansion for it if you want those additional stretch goals. But also keep in mind that the Great Storage Box is for their largest pledge, which is I think $69, and that's mostly because the box is designed to fit all of that stuff into it. The matches take 20 to 40 minutes to play, so 40 for a slowpoke like me, which is a nice time frame as well. This tells me almost everything I need to know about the game. You're going to try and destroy your opponent's cities while protecting your own, getting more and more powerful cards into your deck to do so, while also protecting your own assets. I like the aspect of being forced to prioritize both attack and defense, and if that sounds like a two-player game, well, you're right. Even though they're marketing it as 1 to 4, it's not a 4-player game unless you get the expansions or own classic Volfyirion. And even that, honestly, probably won't be that great. I'd give the retail one of this a shot. I don't think you need to go higher than that, to be honest. And I think their marketing budget is really big, and a lot of board game media has already covered this. So if you've heard of it before now, well, that's probably why. Not necessarily because it's the next amazing thing. That's Friday morning, 11:15 a.m. Now here's another non-board game but board game related product which might appeal to some of you, and that's the Mr. Meeple Season 3 t-shirt Kickstarter, which is going on right now. It's about 26 Canadian for a shirt, and the designs aren't bad. None of them are really jumping out to me as something that I must have, but I mean, it's always fun having board game shirts. Although the shirts aren't that interesting to me in particular, since you can kind of get shirts with board game art or stuff on them in a lot of places. Heck, if you have a design you want in a shirt, send it to me in an email and I'll put it up on my Teespring store for you. I've opened it up. If anybody wants a sweet room and board shirt, I've set the prices as low as Teespring allows them to go. So I'm making like 60 cents on these, really. I think from Teespring it's actually a little bit more expensive in shipping, so you're probably paying about the same for a shirt. And I mainly set this up so I would have some stuff for myself to wear on camera. I've tried a couple stores, been really happy with the customer service from Teespring, so if you're looking to set up your own sort of store like that yourself, I'd check them out. Their premium stuff feels good, their regular stuff feels real shitty. Anyway, so if anybody wants a room and board shirt, there's a link to that in the comments below, but I'm only putting this out there because it has been requested, and I think that the fact that some of you may want to rep the channel, it's wicked cool, you all are amazing, And I'm incredibly honored that anyone out there would want a shirt with our logo on it, which is why I've set the prices so that you pay the same as me. So get it if you want, but this isn't me trying to pressure you to buy anything at all. Literally 60 cents goes into my pocket, that's it. So do it for you if you think it would be cool, and if not, whatever. Anyway, back to Mr. Meeple. What's more interesting to me than the shirts are the other board game branded clothing that they have, like socks, ties, dice trays. Can you wear a dice tray? Probably somewhere. Scarves, jewelries, hats. I actually really like the hats. I like how simple they are with just the little Meeple design. I think that's really cool. And some coasters. So check those out. Unfortunately, the project delivery is estimated to be about May 2022. So if you were thinking about gifts for the board game lovers in your life, they wouldn't be this Christmas. It would be maybe for next Christmas, but or just treat yourself. Treat yourself. That's Friday at 2 p.m. Now up next we have Soul Raiders, and I was particularly interested in Soul Raiders because it's designed by Marc-Andre, who is known for designing Splendor and less known for designing Barony, which I included on my top 10 underrated games of all time list because I love it, it's so good. So I was very excited to see what he was going to produce. It also boasts that this cooperative narrative game is way more replayable than all those other cooperative narrative games, because you'll need to explore each setting multiple times to get the full experience, and that the mechanics of unlocking places and using your cards effectively is more important than the story itself, which just sounds like marketing to me, to be honest. Sorry about it. But the amount of times that innovative and unique are thrown around in this campaign might make you think that you're compensating for something. Well, my innovative bedroom system is endlessly replayable. You got 3 chapters, and that's it. It feels very much like time stories in the sense that you're going to have to revisit places to get the full experience and be able to move on. Whether that means endlessly replayable or it means having to replay a chapter as part of the design is a very big difference to me, at least. It's the equivalent of publishers begging us, please, please, like us, you'll get good value. 30 hours, 30 hours, more, we'll give you more. Play it twice, that's 60, it's good. If the value is there, you shouldn't have to shout about it so much. So you're gonna have to go around fighting enemies, moving around and interacting with the board using your action cards that have a value in the top right corner, but also have an additional bonus in the text below, which is why 2 + 2 can sometimes equal 6. I do love that the group has a collective health meter, so everything always affects everyone, which I think is really cool, but I can't help but think that this would be a better computer game. And even the video seems to simulate that. But it is available on Tabletopia to try out, which I absolutely love, because that means it's free for everyone to try, and this will be only available on Kickstarter. So unless you want to wait for a reprint, if this interests you, make sure to check it out before 4 p.m. on Friday and decide if it's going into your collection. Now next up we have a game called Everybody Wants a Pet, and it's basically a retheming of Snake Oil. It's not Snake Oil, it's not from the same company, but the premise is exactly the same, but with pets. On your turn, you'll draw a card which tells you your occupation and what sort of pet you might want. Other people will have in their hand pets that are not that, but will have to convince you that their pet is the one that will suit your needs the best. And honestly, it sounds better than Snake Oil to me because, well, it's about pets. And who's not going to be attached to their creature companion? Unfortunately for you, now that I've gotten you all excited, foaming at the mouth for this game, screaming around your house, wildly looking for your credit card, breaking down doors, throwing your laptops out the window for the enthusiasm you feel for these lovable fictional creatures, I do have to tell you that it's not funding right now. And it's pretty far off, so I wouldn't get your hopes up too high. Got over £3,000 to go. But there's still hope. It has until Friday night, or more specifically Saturday at 3:13 a.m. So check it out and cross your fingers if you want to get it. Now moving ahead to Saturday morning to another game that is not funding, and that's Top Pop, the bottle cap bidding game. The Fallout 3 Nuka-Cola trading for kids. I'm just kidding, it doesn't have anything to do with Fallout. And actually, it doesn't have anything to do with bottle caps either. You play a card, collect some bottle caps, and if you want to win that card, you have to put the highest stack of bottle caps on it. And it has to include your color as the topmost cap. And if you want to outbid someone else, well, you have to include a higher stack that has their color in it and your color on top. Yep, it's a bit confusing. There's also numbers on the city cards that you're trying to collect, but do they matter at all? Nope. They're just there to tell you how many cards of that type are in the deck. Well, does the rulebook specify you need different city cards to win? Nah, just get 6 of them. Does the rulebook also give you examples of how to play with 2 players and then add a third random yellow player into the mix? Yeah. So there's lots to talk about here, but unfortunately, none of it very good. And this video is already probably too long, so let's move on to another piece of crap that I shouldn't be spending my time on, but I'm going to subject you to so you can feel some of my pain. Next up, we have a trading card product, and I won't be telling you the deadline. I won't be linking in the description below. I'm just telling you so you can commiserate in my misery knowing that someone's tried to make this game. And that's Turd, the trading card game. How did I get here? And not only that, but this is the 2nd series. Or at least that's what self-proclaimed comedian Doug Driesel Jr. will try to tell you on the campaign page. But when you look at the other products he's attempted to fund, you'll see there wasn't a first one. At least not on Kickstarter. There was a first Captain Asshole and a second Captain Asshole, both of which were unsuccessful. But no Turd #1. But poetically, as full of crap as this game is, it still raised more than Doug's comedy album recording. So I guess people won't buy just any sort of crap. We finally found something worse than Rallyman cars. Moving on. Next we have a game called Milhouette, or at least I thought it was a game. It looks like a game, seems like a game, is not a game. Or maybe it's just lost in translation. Even so, I still think it's a better game than the previous 2 entries. You're all phony fortune tellers and you have to tell a customer their fortune and then the customer will pick the fortune which they like the best. There's no real goal, no way of scoring points, that's it. It's all about the fun experience of being phony fortune tellers. And what I absolutely love about this campaign is the example of the sorts of fortunes that you might get with your 3 silhouette cards. My Japanese Duolingo isn't coming along as quickly as I would have hoped, so I'll have to consult the English translation. You will become a shrimp in your afterlife. Dinosaurs represent extinction, so shrimp will become extinct in your afterlife. You will live happily ever after in a clean fish tank. I couldn't have said it better myself. Saturday night, 11 p.m. Next up, we have a light family card game based on the source material for The Emperor's New Groove. Nope, The Emperor's New Clothes. And in the description that definitely wasn't written by a robot or an alien pretending to be human, it tells us that players will have to combine creativity, basic math skills, human interaction, imagination, humor, storytelling, strategy, and, of course, play. You're going to have a set of 4 nobles, all fully clothed, and you'll attempt to keep them in their pants while trying to rip off the clothes of all the other nobles. When you're naked, you're laughed at a court, which is a feeling I can very much relate to. It's got funny enough art, but in essence, you're just playing cards on other people and trying to be the last one standing. I don't quite see how the creativity comes into play. It's pretty basic, but it's been funded. So it does exist already, and if you'd like it to exist in your house, well, then check it out before it's gone. Now next up, we have a party game for 2 to 8 players, although I anticipate you may want to play it with fewer players and not more. And that's a game called Synchronized, where you're trying to be the best synchronized team out there. If you're a Survivor fan, this is basically the Survivor Challenge Shut Your Trap, but with matching specific swimming poses and as a team instead of one-on-one. And it's a great challenge, and so I actually think this is going to be a pretty fun game. Both teams have the same routine to memorize, but either team can grab the whistle and force the cards to be flipped over. And then as a team, you're dealt out cards that you have to match to the specific poses to their place in line, which I think is actually a pretty great twist because you can't necessarily break down the pattern by section and assign it to members of your team, but everyone has to remember everything because you don't know what card is going to be dealt to what player. You then score a point for each correct position, and to add further difficulty, the winning team is dealt an impediment which they have to follow for the remainder of the game, like holding your cards upside down. You can get a physical copy for 26 bucks Canadian or 20 US, Or you can get a print and play copy for $3, which you can then print out yourself. I am surprisingly intrigued. I really didn't think this was going to be that good, but it actually looks like a lot of fun. So that's done next Monday at 3 p.m. if you're interested. And our last one this week, and I absolutely love this week because I get to end on such a joyous note. This isn't a game, but it's the first thing that I've backed over the past 4 episodes, and that's funding for the African Board Game Convention, also known as ABCon or ABCon. Now, ABCon is the first board game convention in Nigeria and Sub-Sahara Africa. They started it in 2016. In 2019, there was 1 board game cafe in Nigeria. In 2021, there are 4 board game cafes in Nigeria, and the hobby continues to expand. I used to think to myself, I thought, who's gonna fund a board game convention if they can't attend, other than the people who are going there? What a dumb thing to kickstart. Obviously, the people attending should just pay for the space, and that should be that. But I don't know. Maybe it's because I've had such incredible times at smaller conventions. I've never been able to get to the larger ones. But right before COVID hit, I went to a Niagara board gaming convention, and it was just a blast. It was a big, long weekend of non-stop gaming. What could be better? Or maybe it's because COVID lockdown has been tough on everyone, and it just warms my friggin' heart to see people gathering and playing games and actively expanding the hobby and the love for the hobby, and it just makes me so warm inside. Just so warm. Burning hot. Burning with envy. Why do I not live in Nigeria? What a mistake, stupid idiot! But I think it's really cool that our hobby continues to expand all over the world. This is evident through this channel alone because I know that we have subscribers all around the globe. And it is just such a heartwarming reminder that games are for everyone, and helping people realize how precious and joyful spending time with one another can be warms this old cynical heart of mine. They've already raised about triple their funding goal, but check out the campaign, if not just to see the video where the creators talk and showcase video highlights from the past years. My favorite is when someone gets the Chiron, the bottom of the screen attribution as their name, Game Enthusiast. And I just find it so wholesome. And I'm so excited for everyone who gets to attend, as well as everyone who gets the chance to attend smaller conventions all around the world. But if they get to 22.7K, they'll bring Eric Lang down to ABCon, and he's already agreed to go. Which, as a big Eric Lang fan, I genuinely really hope that happens for them. So there we go, another week. Every week I do a pick for me and a pick for you. So this week, my pick is obvious. It's what I've backed and literally just finished talking about, ABCon, because backing makes me feel things. But really, I'm just saying this now, so if you skip to the end, you can go back and check it out. And I'll also pick a game too, because why not? And I'm actually also surprised for this pick. But I think it's a really great design, and obviously anything that reminds me of Survivor or a Survivor challenge, being a huge Survivor fan, I'm always going to gravitate to, and that's Synchronized. I love that they have a $4 print and play pledge, and while I'm too lazy to do that, I think that this has some real potential. I desperately wanted my pick to be Soul Raiders when I started this video, but I don't know, it just wasn't for me. So that's my pick of the week. ABCon and Synchronized. For my pick for you, and this is going to counter everything I said in the previous video, but I gotta give it to Chocolate Rolls of Moolamore. I want to say 1947, but that's definitely not for everyone. And while Chronicles of Drunagor may not be the best for everyone either, it does seem like a solid pick of the week, if you have the money for it. And the 5 reasons you shouldn't back that I previously mentioned don't make you decide against it. I'm starting to realize how spoiled I was in the first episode of Crowdfunding Countdown, where I had multiple choices of games that I was aching to back. Or maybe just get a board game bag from Board Game Tables instead, because they really are solid. And I thought they were kind of a dumb idea until I got one, and I love it. But if you don't have a big campaign game on your shelf and you'd like one, there are so many people out there who like colored moles with droopy doors, and I believe there's a high chance that you might as well. But don't let me incite hype for it. You know I'm actively against it. I'm just saying, out of this week, I gotta give credit where credit's due. And conversely, If you shouldn't back that, you don't need to back anything this week. Anyway, that's it for me. Let me know if you're excited about any of these campaigns and what you're backing or what you're considering. Hit that like button so I know you made it this far, and I shall see you in the next video. As always, my name is Chris George, and I don't have a catchphrase, but always remember, you will become a shrimp in your afterlife. Dinosaurs represent extinction, so shrimp will become extinct in the afterlife, and you'll live happily ever after in a clean fish tank. Bye.